Hey everybody, it is Yishan here, and I am here with a duelist who did quite well at a REDU tournament. If you'd like to introduce yourself, good sir, and let us know who you are and what you did, that would be much appreciated.
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy. I'm just kidding, but my name is Alvin. Some of you guys might know me as Stratos.1 on Discord, or my DB name, GameTainment1. Uh, just a nobody at the moment, but I'm sure a few of the high, I guess, quote unquote pro Yu-Gi-Oh players might start recognizing me just because of the few IRL events that we've been to, such as YCS Sacramento and the recent YCS Anaheim for Ultimate Time Wizard. I did got paired up with a few of the well-known YouTubers, such as 10 Foot D, OG99 Gary Yu, who was playing Bayou Turbo, one of the three zombie players, Fitz as well, and yeah, not really anyone well-known out there at the moment, but I'm sure a few people might start recognizing me, especially if I start you know, doing better and performing better on tournaments. But yeah,
Sure, yeah, and if you keep
glad to
appearing
be
on
on
my
this.
channel, there you go. The cloud is real, over here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is redo. So I think a lot of people, By the way, you placed, I assume, was a top four with this deck.
So there was two redo tournaments. One of them was like a 50-man, close to like a 50-man local. So that was on shout outs to Metaphors, Marcus Hayden. So he was kind of like the pioneer of getting this format started it for redo 2012, September 2012.
Hmm.
So I basically just joined his Discord server and then played in one of his locals that he was hosting online. And then recently we had like the bigger tournament since there was a lot more prize at stakes. So they called it the REDU Rivals. So first tourney I got into, I believe it was top four, yeah, top four, and then the recent tournament it was top 16.
Okay, and how many players were at the recent tournament?
I think it was like around 130, so it was quite a big tournament, and there were a few well-known players, online players at least. They also play IRL, of course, such as like Pro Storm. What's the other guy's name? Ghost Rider 15. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
relatively well-known names in the tournament.
That's pretty big for a non-Edison retro tournament. Actually, it's almost actually pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
considering how new this format, or well, quote unquote new this format is.
right, right, right. So redo, I think most players are familiar with Edison. Redo
Yeah.
might be a slightly different beast. Like, you know, what's the maybe the difference between some key differences between Edison and Redo, and like why are you finding yourself enjoying this format?
So Redo was definitely one of the retro formats that I played during the actual time. Like I want to say this was 13 years ago now. Yeah, 13 years.
Hmm.
So I played IRL during this format when I was still in high school. But something notably different, some notable different things between this format and Edison is there's no priority. So for those who are familiar with that, priority is basically gone this format. And also there's the introduction of Exceed monsters, which are the new extra deck monsters, and it just feels like a completely different game mechanic, but there's also a lot of similarities.
Hmm.
And if I were to compare it with Edison, besides the priority, there is still some good back and forth
Hmm.
plays being made, but at the same time, there's definitely some like considerations to take into. Like for example, I want to say this format is a bit more OTK centric. So
Hmm.
there's like a good amount of decks that can just make OTK pushes, like not necessarily from straight from 8K life points, but say you took some chip damage like 1500 or like even just 900 and you're at like 71 or like 65, your opponent can just make one play and just kill you from there. Stuff like that happens relatively a lot more often compared to Edison format. So it kind of makes you play with more wary. So you gotta be more cautious of things like that. And at the same time, you're also the player that's allowed to do that to your opponent.
Right.
And one notable card that isn't really played in this format is because it's banned is Trap Dust Shoot. So that's also something you don't have to worry about.
Right. I think that may be one of the most obnoxious cards to play against in Edison, because it feels like your opponent just like the game doesn't really matter anymore because once your opponent knows what you have, they can just play around whatever you have perfectly. Um, so I do think this is one of the best cards in Edison. Okay, I think thanks for the introduction. I think yeah, it's like kind of a little more exciting. Maybe you can OTK people. Oh, I think you were also telling me earlier, like because Heavy Storm is in the format, it doesn't feel like going first is insurmountable, as in maybe other retro formats that don't have Heavy Storm. Like
Um, so I would compare this topic to like another retro format called Hat Format 2014. So in Redo, I feel like if you're if you're going second, it doesn't really feel like you can't really play because like in Hat Format, right, where they just set a monster and then set four. Sometimes like because they have those traps, like you just can't really play. I feel sometimes, and like I feel like your match is already determined whether you win or lose. Whereas in this format, right, like because Heavy Storm is still legal, right? Like you can go second, and your opponent can get punished for setting 4 or 5 cards. But also, Starlight Road is also another card that's relatively played.
mhm.
So I feel like it's a good balance between whether you want to respect Heavy Storm or not in this format, and cards like Gores are still being played. So even if they Heavy Storm you for like 2 cards, you can still drop a Gores afterwards
Mhm. Mhm.
or come back, for example.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like it's not like not all games are like predetermined, quote unquote. Just like how in Edison, right? Like you play Dust Shoot and then you just play around your opponent's hand, or hat format, your opponent sets a monster, sets four, and then you gotta play around for it back rows. Like yeah, like it can happen in this format as well, but I just feel like there are ways where you can make plays to play around it easier, and it's like I said, there's a lot of like big pushes that you can make in this format where I feel as you can't really do that as efficiently in other formats for like a lack of better term, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, thanks for the introduction. I think yeah, I think for like me, I'm not too familiar with the format, so I think a lot of people will be interested in sort of maybe like a good reason to play it. I think we can move
Yeah.
on to the deck list now. I think I won't go over every single card. I think some of it, is relatively self-explanatory. But I think maybe there's a couple ways. Like there seems to be a couple different ways to play agents, right? Like you either play card trooper or you don't, right? And so it seems like in this list you definitely decided to. Is there like a something that made you decide like yes I want to play card trooper or over non card trooper builds or what was kind of the thought process there?
So originally, I in my first tournament, I started off with the treacherous build, as most people know it as. So this is basically so that list was basically just Simon Heath's build. For those who don't know, that's a uh famous European player, EU player,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
who had a lot of success with the deck back in the day, and I think he still plays Modern currently, as far as I know. But
Mm-hmm.
anyways, this deck was basically a net deck of his. I might have taken like 2 or 3 cards out for side deck maybe just because of like personal preference or like a meta call type of thing. Um, the reason I decided to switch from Treacherous to the Trooper build for the second 20 was because after the first tourney, I felt like yeah, the deck can have an advantage because you're not playing any traps, and MST is relatively played this format, so it kind of makes your opponent have more dead cards against you. But at the same time, for certain matchups, right, I feel like this deck kind of lacks defense. Like I've noticed that while I was on the Treacherous build, I would get OTK'd more often by a deck like Bubble Beat.
Mm-hmm.
So I just felt like the deck needed some traps, especially in the side deck,
Mm-hmm.
and I just wanted to give the build a try because Call of the Haunted is also a pretty broken card along with uh Crestia and Hyperion and Thunder King, so that was the reason why I chose to try out the Trooper build.
Right, all of these could be special summoned even if milled. Like you don't have to even special summon them first.
Exactly, except the BLS.
Except for the BLS, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But that card I guess is just too broken to not
yeah, too
include.
broken not to play.
So I guess yeah, maybe on BLS could get us on the next target, which is like Spirit Reaper. I think is also quite a maybe a different choice. I guess it's a dark for BLS, but is there sort of some other reasons why you played it, or you know?
So I think So I think Spear Reaper is like a relatively slept on card this format. I mean, even back then, some decks played it. For example, like Dino Rabbit.
Hmm.
But I think Spear Reaper is just a really good card and to body hits. Because like again, like I said, people try to OTK you this format, and
Hmm.
also it just stalls and gets you a few turns sometimes. And I've during my 20, right, I've had this Spear Reaper go off so many times where I was able to rip an opponent's cards an opponent's card out of their hand just
Hmm.
because they have an open field.
Hmm.
And like you said, it's just an extra dark field for the BLS, and it's still a level 3. And in this Asian deck, you do have your extra copies of Venus to go into a rank 3 play, so it's not the worst card, but it's a decent card, and it can be really good at times.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think like it's like the same in almost every retro format because the card pool is limited. Just being unexpected, you get a lot of value out of cards that your opponents are not expecting, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
okay, I
Uh,
think.
funny enough, funny enough, I actually lost to my own Spirit Reaper during one of my matches because the guy just Monster Reborned the Spirit Reaper and took my own card.
That is that's sad, I guess.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, you have to target the face-up card, not the card in the graveyard, so it doesn't just kill itself when your opponent monster reborns it. Otherwise, that would
yeah.
have been pretty funny for you. Um, I guess maybe there's a couple more choices here that. Okay, so I mean, obviously you're playing 3 Call of the Haunted, right? Because that's the whole point of the deck. Um,
Yep.
I think I see a couple. So maybe let's tackle them more like Maxi. You know, like this is like a. I think this is a very famous card because modern Yu-Gi-Oh is so special summon heavy that they've had to ban this card in the TCG. Um, how did you feel about this in Redo? You know, this is still pretty early times where Maxi wasn't completely broken yet. Uh, just kind of.
So I would say you're correct. You're actually correct. I wouldn't say Maxi is quote unquote broke in this format, but it's just to it's a stop check the combo decks like windups basically, but it's not necessarily a good card at times either because it's really matchup dependent, right? But in this
Mhm.
format, cards like, for example, Tour Guide is still being played, even though the card's at 2. So I think majority of the times the max C will just be a 1-for-1. But like I said, it's just a checkpoint for the combo decks like windups.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
for this deck, right, or in this format actually, right, say for example, Hero Beat or Bubble Beat, when they play max C, sometimes I feel like it doesn't even matter. Like people will just disrespect you
Mhm.
and take on the maxi challenge because they know you're not playing gores or anything to stop them. But with this deck though, right? When you're playing maxi, they're actually taking the challenge because you can draw into your other hand monsters that you're playing, such as Tragodia or Honest or your 3 heralds to actually
Mhm.
stop their play,
Mhm.
right? But for some decks that don't have these, right? Like you can just disrespect the maxi and still OTK and win.
Right. Right. So you're saying it's like almost better in this deck because of the hand traps, basically. Like you actually draw into something
Yeah,
that can help you if they do take the
right.
challenge. Um,
Exactly.
I think, yeah, Herald. Like, how, like I guess this card. I mean, it feels like you have to play 3, but this card can be hit or miss. I feel like. How did you feel about this card?
Um, it was definitely hit or miss. I haven't played. So personally, when it comes to hand traps, I was never really a believer of 3 elves. As you can see, there's only 2 Gemini imps and 2 Maxis and not 3 of them because I feel like I don't ever want to break drawing them dead and like it's such like a hit or miss timing thing. It's kind of like playing. It's kind of like the same topic as should I sign in 3 DD Crows and Edison? Like some players just choose to side 1 or 2, and some people choose to play 3 because they feel
Right.
like they need it. But I'm always a believer of 2 hand traps
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. Um, so I felt like with Harold though, shouts to Calvin Chow. So he told me to just play 3, but I feel like the reason why you need 3 in this deck though is because you don't necessarily always need to summon the Crestia or Hyperion properly. You can just pitch it right away and then abuse it with the Call of the Haunted. And the great thing is when you're well, it's more like a ruling, but the great thing is you could just play the Herald as a cost and then chain the Call of the Haunted to bring back the other fairy that you pitch.
Right. Yes. Yes. I see. I see. That is pretty cool. Okay. Um, I guess maybe maybe one more weird card is Creature Swap. Is this pretty common, or is this like to swap Shine Balls? Like, Is this just
Um,
what's going on here?
so creature swap, oh, there are so many plays, especially caught on stream, where I used it and I took something insane with it.
Uh
But
huh. Uh huh.
I feel like in this deck, some people don't play it, but again, this quote unquote technology card, I'd say it was also taken from Simon He because this was basically from his list.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to just keep it in for the trooper list, and I feel like you just need it because sometimes your shine balls, right? Like when your opponent plays Valor or Maxi on your Venus, right? Like you just have a bunch of small weenies on the board, whether it's like an Earth or like a Sangan or Torguide, like you have to special summon in this deck to make something big to run over stuff. And when you're under those hand traps like Valor or Maxi, that's where the creature swap does come in play. And in this format, like I said, because it's very OTK centric, some decks like Chaos Dragons, they just big monsters, right? And sometimes they don't want to overcommit their board, so they just have like one monster, and when you're allowed to just creature swap like that, I think the play is pretty insane. And also you can utilize cards like Sangan with this deck with Call on it, and then just creature swap that and search for another card. So I
Mm-hmm.
think overall it's pretty good. But one thing you do have to notice, be aware of, is that when you creature swap your card trooper and the card trooper dies, you don't get the draw though.
Right. You have to be the one controlling it. Yeah. If this card you control is destroyed. Um, I think okay, so that makes some sense. Maybe the last card, or maybe let's talk about the traps now. I think Solemn Warning. I guess I remember, I didn't play too much redo, but at least I remember when playing at this time that pretty much everyone was like maxing out on Solemn Warning. Is Solemn Judgment legal in this format too?
Solemn
It
Judgment
is.
is legal in this format, yeah.
So,
So
like people were just maxing out always, but I feel like maybe you think that's not the case, or that may not be as important.
so I just wanted to try something different. Because like you know how in retro formats the way how we play today is always a little bit different from how we played back then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I know back in the days, like in most formats where this card was legal, people would just play what they call the Solemn Brigade, which is just Solemn Judgment and then two copies of Warning. So I chose to just play the one Warning because I felt that in the Asian deck, right, you're already paying at least 1,000 or 1,500 life as a handicap. I would say for a +1 card, which is the Gachi Gachi, when you're starting off with your Venus play.
Mm-hmm.
And also, this deck can be a little slow because if you don't have the Venus, right, you're just summoning the Earth, letting that die in battle and taking damage already. And then the next turn, that's when you play your Venus play, and you gotta hope that doesn't get stopped. So I feel like the life points in this deck does kind of matter. It kind of plays similarly in a way. I guess a good comparison is like Frogs and Edison. Like your life point is your utility, so sometimes you just need to tank hits. And I feel like with two warnings, like that's 4,000 life points, and I feel like that's a lot. And there are times, right, where you don't necessarily want to see two solemn warnings, right? Like I just didn't really want to break when it comes to like drawing because I feel like in this deck sometimes you're already breaking, right? Like you're playing three vanillas, and then sometimes the maxis might be dead. So regarding maxi, I might consider just playing one moving forward and starting the second copy, but
Mm-hmm.
that's for me to continue playtesting. So, but back to the solemn warning topic, yeah, I just didn't want to pay too much life points sometimes because I feel like also because there's so many follow-up plays in this format, right? Like I feel that sometimes when you solemn warning something, right, your opponent might just have the monster reborn or like a call of the haunted or like a miracle fusion, and because you pay 2,000 life, it makes it a little bit easier for your opponent to just kill you, right? So solemn warning isn't really like the end all be all. Like it obviously is matchup dependent. Like it can like close out games, but at the same time, like it could also like cost you the game, or just because you bricked on it or you drew it late. Like it's not a good top deck late game, right? When you're low on life already. Like once your opponent like hits you down to 2K, like it's a dead card, you know. But as a one of, I think it's perfectly fine. Like you could just mill it with the card trooper still, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
But I do respect it though if people choose to play two copies, but I was just trying it out as a one-off, so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I guess the last card is Torrential, which is kind of like you. I guess you could have played any trap in this spot, and I guess you went over 40 to do it. Um, how come Torrential? Is this like a
yeah, so yeah, so the deck is actually on 42, which I think is okay, but I don't think I would want to go more than 42. I was trying to drop it down to 41 or keep it at 40, but I think 42 is still fine because you're again technically mitigating your bricks on drawing these shine balls, and knowing with the card trooper kind of like also just I feel makes it okay because then you're just deck ending already, and once you play your Venus, right, you're already taking the two or three copies of the shine balls out of the deck, so that will get you lower to make up for the two cards.
Mm-hmm.
So for the Torrential Tribute though, I chose to play those just because there weren't really any other like I guess impactful trap cards that could punish your opponent. And besides the Dark Hole, you can't really clear out fields without using your monsters in this deck. And I feel like because Asian is like a deck that doesn't play many trap cards to begin with, the Torrential can also just punish them when they're overextending too much. And this kind of combos off pretty well with the Solemn Warning because there was one matchup, right, where it was like against a wind-up player, I think. They were going off like crazy basically, and I basically timed in my Torrential Tribute and he had a Starlight Road. So the Solemn Warning is also to help stop a Starlight Road. So it lets you play a card like Heavy Storm or Dark Hole with a bit more peace in mind,
Mm-hmm.
just because you can just Solemn Warning the Starlight Road.
Mm-hmm.
So, but back to the Torrential Tribute, yeah, I just feel like this deck needed some defense in case your opponent overextended, and it's also okay to just lose a monster. I feel like you can afford to lose your own board because, for example, right, like when I'm opening up like Earth, for example, right, if I just summon Earth and search Venus, I don't really care if the Earth lives or not, really. Like it's okay. Like I'm willing to just play Torrential Tribute, lose my Earth, and then my opponent loses like their Thunder King or whatever big monster that they choose to summon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also because you're on Call the Haunted, right? Like if you torrential your own Hyperion, so your opponent doesn't like try to BLS it or something, you can just call back the Hyperion later and then still have a push
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
make.
Mm-hmm. I see. I see. Okay, cool. I think that covers the main deck. Um, I think let's knock out the maybe the more obvious choices. I think you already talked about Gemini in the side deck. You already talked about Gemini M's. I assume this is pretty much only for Dark World,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and you're playing two because of the two hand trap theory. Um, I guess we can go with Tragodia. How was your thoughts about this Tragodia in the side deck?
That card should not have been signed. So this original card trooper list was taken out. It was net decked from someone who I believe got top 16 at YCS Tacoma, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So this was during it was technically redo format, I guess, but this was when Mermails first came out, and I'm sorry, I don't really know how to say the guy's last name, but his first name is Adam. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's like a Russian person, but he got top 16 in YCS Seattle, and this was essentially his list that I net decked with a few card choice differences, and I wasn't too sure why he was signing the Tragodia either, but throughout the tournament, I wasn't really signing it in. So I wasn't too sure what it was for, but moving forward, I don't think I would want to side this card in still, because I'm just not sure what I would want to take out for it or what match exactly I would want to put it in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I think Cyber Dragon. This seems. I assume it's for machines, but maybe other scenarios as well.
Yeah, so one relatively I don't want to say popular, but I would say it's relatively played in this format is Geargia. So there's three different variants of it, whether it's the pure version, Kirakuris, or with Machinas. And besides the machine matchup, Cyber Dragon, I feel is just kind of like it's kind of similar to Edison format, how people sign in Cyber Dragons in matchups, even though it's not a machine matchup. It's just a good 21 beater, point second, and in this deck, right, you normal summon a good amount of times, whether it's the Earth, the Card Trooper, the Venus, or a Tour Guide play. So sometimes you just want to bait out whatever back rows your opponent has, because like if they Solemn Warning your normal summon and you don't have like a follow-up play to drop your boss monster, you sometimes you can just lose from that. So the Cyber Dragon just helps bait over things like that. And as a 21 beater, it's pretty good. This deck also loses to Thunder King, which is like a card that's pretty popular, I would say, in some decks. So this also baits out Thunder King, and it's a level 5, so comboing off with the three orange lights or the two earth, you can also go into a Black Rose play.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason why behind I chose to play the two Cyber Dragons.
Okay, okay. And then I see the spells here, MST Forbidden Lands. I assume this is just more for the back row.
Yeah, just extra back row hates. On my previous list, I was maining the third MST, but again, Redo is a pretty diverse format, I would say. So some decks, there are some decks where I feel that three MSTs might be dead, and then there are more back row heavy decks, for example, like Dino Rabbit or Hero Beat, where you do need the MSTs. Lance is like just an extra copy of MST, I would say. But what I like about Lance though is that you could also use it as a damage calc card, and it helps makes your boss monster plays push through. For example, when you drop your Hyperion, they try to bomb us it, you just play Lance. So your Hyperion stays on board and you can still pop a card afterwards.
Hmm.
Same thing with the BLS,
Hmm.
and sometimes you just need the Lance to protect whatever monster you deal on your board so that your play still goes through. Like for example, your Venus, they try to bomb us it, you Lance it, and you're still able to get your Shine Walls out afterwards.
Right, right.
So I feel like it's kind of similar to Blackwings in this deck. Like you want your normal summons to go through sometimes,
Hmm.
so that way you could start extending from there and then drop your boss monsters afterwards. So
I see. I see. I think we were talking before this video about MST and about blind MST. I thought it was a good point that I wanted to bring up again. I think you were saying how you feel like maybe people don't actually just fire off their MSTs blind often enough. Um,
yeah, and I think that's kind of crucial because, like, so this goes back to my first tournament. I don't know if I don't think the replay is anywhere, but basically what happened was I lost in top four to Hero Beat, Bubble Beat. And the reason I lost was because I had an MST, right? And the guy sets his whole hand. And sometimes I feel like you just have to blind MST in this format, even though normally, right, like kind of like an Edison, right? People try to save their MSTs for Black Whirlwind or anything face up. Like in this format, people try to save MSTs for Wind Up Factories or Call the Haunted plays, but blind MST I feel isn't too bad because I guess maybe not yet, but draw traps aren't really played in this format. Like the
hmm
only chainable trap that's really being played right now is compulsory
hmm
or like
hmm
another MST. But
hmm
I feel like blind MST sometimes is necessary because it kind of just determines whether you're gonna survive a game or it could also just help you win the game, right?
hmm
Because when you're blind MSTing, it kind of helps you predetermine whether your next play is gonna go through or not. Like say for example, oh I end phase MST and I hit a random Solemn Warning or I hit a Bottomless Trap Hole or Torrential Tribute. But also sometimes, right, like I said, it can save you from losing. For example, like against a Hero Beat player, right? He had a set reinforcement of the army, and the other card was Miracle Fusion. And because when I blind MC, because I hit the reinforcement instead of the Miracle Fusion, I lost, right? But
hmm
had I hit the Miracle Fusion instead, like, he wouldn't have been able to close out the game against me, and the game would have kept on going forward.
Right, right. So it's more like, yeah, if there's like a crucial point, or yeah, I guess Bubble Beat's interesting because they have to set their spells. They have no choice, right, to actually do their plays.
Exactly.
So you can hit a crucial
Yeah.
spell there. I think it's really interesting. I was thinking the same thing too, whereas I feel like we're taught to not blind MST because like you can get burned. If there's someone chains something, or you can get burned in that sense. But sometimes you've just got to like bite the bullet and be like, well, this is like the crucial turn of the game. I need to just try my best to get my playthrough here, or stop my opponent's potential next turn. And or like you were saying earlier, like if I hit a bottomless, I might know that it's less likely that the other trap is a summon trap, and I may be able to play around kind of like a battle trap accordingly. And that's not always the
Yeah,
case, but it's more of
exactly.
like a percentage points, I guess. I think that's really interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I find I don't blind MST enough. Even in Edison, I probably don't do it enough. I probably should just be firing it off, more often than not, honestly. But it's hard to say, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those hard things, especially the way how. So this is more like I want to say this is technical gameplay. This is more like a psychological warfare type of thing. Like some people, for example, they might set their first back row, like their bombers as their first set, or they might either set as their second one. Like there's also like psychological warfare, I feel like, that gets involved when you're doing like a blind MST play. So
Right.
there's definitely a lot more to it than just,
Yeah,
what we just said earlier.
yeah. It's certainly an interesting. The card is super interesting. Such a simple card and so many interesting ways to use it. I think that's pretty
Yeah,
great design. Okay, I
but that's
guess. Oh,
that's the
sorry.
variance of this game, you know. Yeah,
Yeah, it's true. It's one of the beautiful things about Yu-Gi-Oh is these cards, like the tension between cards and how to use them
yeah.
can change. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Okay, I guess we got a lot of traps here in the side deck as well. So we got some floodgates, a pair of floodgates here. Goes in Shadow Imprisoning. If you want to quickly sort of go over these ones, like what are they used against, sort of thing.
Yeah. So Shadow and Prison Mirror. I chose it over Soul Drain, even though Soul Drain was legal, because I still wanted to respect Inzectors, even though it's not necessarily a popular deck at the moment. Soul Drain only stops the grave completely, but then I just wanted to make sure Inzectors wouldn't check. This deck technically also stops Gravekeepers in a way, and I know Gravekeepers is one of the hardest matchups for this deck.
Hmm.
So that's also why Shadow Prison in here, Mirror is in here. But it was also, but primarily the thought process was this was just to stop Dark Worlds. So when they card destruction and you chain this, none of their monsters resolve. But unfortunately, this card doesn't stop Grapha from coming back. But that was the whole reason for the two Shadow Imprisoning Mirror.
Hmm.
For the two goals of match, this was just for windups. I personally chose it over Rivalry because I felt like the attributes were more important than the types. Even though this deck technically does play darks as well, but and like Earths like Card Trooper, but it doesn't really I don't really see it coming up that often where it would matter. So I just chose Goals and Match just because the attributes I felt were more impactful than the monster types.
Right. I see. I see. Okay. And then compulsive bottomless. How come you chose these traps? I guess besides cards like Mirror Force or whatever else is available in the format. Um,
So it's funny you said Mirror Force because I felt like moving forward, this deck should side in a Mirror Force just because most people don't really see battle traps coming in.
hmm.
Um, I would personally take out the second bottomless that I have sided in for it.
Hmm.
So the logic behind the two compulse and the bottomless was because, like I said earlier, I feel like this deck lacks defense sometimes, and like you just need to stop OTKs from coming out.
Right.
Like the
Right.
two compulse are for Shinings for any Xseed monsters. Like there was one game where I had to compose a Dark Arm Dragon against Pro Storm as well. But then afterwards I creature swapped for his BLS that he had because he had both BLS and Dark Arm on the field.
Uh huh.
So yeah, the compose sometimes it's like the most. I want to say compose is one of the most broken traps in this format just because it stops a lot of big monsters from coming out in this. Like I said again in this OTK like format. So Compulse is just a really good card. You could also compose your own boss monsters and then re-drop them back again and then use their effects once more as well. So
Right. 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 I see. Okay. So one
yeah,
bottomless
and
out.
then
Maybe a Mirror Force. Maybe there's something for the Trag as well. Like you could.
yeah, I just haven't thought about it yet for the Trag.
I
So
see.
this deck still needs more testing. There's still some food left in the kitchen to cook, I would say. So
Okay. Okay. Some more space to develop. Sounds like fun.
yeah,
Okay, extra deck. It does look pretty tight. I mean, you got the Chimera tech for the Cyber Dragons, so got to do that. Um, you got a lot of Xyz in here, and like a couple
I just
synchros.
want to say right now. Sorry for the interruption. I just want to say right now that for this format, Trishula did not deserve to get banned. Konami purposely banned Trishula to promote Exceeds. I just want to say Trishula did not deserve to get banned, but uh, moving forward though, like yeah, you are right. The extra deck and this deck is pretty tight. As you can see, there's no Stardust Dragon and for the level 8. As much as I wanted to play that to protect my own monsters,
Uh huh.
like the one random Utopia. Like some builds don't even play the Utopia, but I just wanted it because I was main decking Mind Control and Creature Swap,
Mhm. Mhm.
and you still have your two Thunder Kings, right? And there are times where you're actually able to go into an Armory Arm as well with a level 2 tuner and a Shine Ball
Right.
or a Tragodia even.
Right.
And yeah, so this is like pretty. The rest of the extra deck is pretty self-explanatory. It's mostly just the common XD staples, like the
Mhm.
rank threes and rank twos for this deck.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, the deck. The problem is like the extra deck is a little tight. Like I would want to play, for example, like a second Gachi Gachi, because there are times where you can make more than one, but it's just unfortunate. You just gotta hope the situation doesn't come up.
Suck it up, kind of thing. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, yeah. It is. I feel like it's interesting. When I was playing these old formats, I feel like I never was like running out of extra deck space. But like now, like in modern takes on these retro formats, I don't know if it's because I have access to more cards, but like I always find myself running out of like space. You know, even for decks that are like not even maybe as diverse as this one. Like I'll just be like, man, I am having to cut extract monsters. So I guess that's a problem.
Um,
Players have to deal with that everywhere, I guess.
yeah,
um,
like I almost say like this isn't redo format, but this is more like hat format. Like I think the extra deck space is even more tight in a format like hat. Like
mhm.
for example, if you're playing character Geargia, like there's so many synchros and XCs that you just want to have in the extra deck for different scenarios that you might run into. But
Right, right.
you just cut on space that you want to choose the ones that are more likely to happen the most.
I think so. All right. Well, this has been a fantastic discussion slash deck profile, Alvin. Thank you. I think I learned a lot about redo. I learned a lot about blind MSTing. Um, and just I think it was a great introduction to the format. Congratulations on your finish. Like, do you think you're going to be playing a lot more of this format in the future, or like, how do you feel like does it compare to Edison? Is it like you just switch to it when you're bored of like a certain format? Like, okay, let's play some redo. Like, how are you feeling about the future of the format?
I think the future is pretty bright for this format, and thanks for the congratulations. I'll definitely be playing in more redo format tournaments, whether it's IRL or online. Again, I already said this earlier, but shouts to Marcus Hayden for Metaphors, is his YouTube channel for pioneering this format. Um, sorry, what was your other questions?
I think like I think that's you covered it mostly. More like like how like are you gonna? You pretty much covered it. I was just more like I think most people are from Edison, so like they're trying to figure out like oh like is this something to do like when I'm getting tired of getting trapped dust shooted, and maybe the answer is yes. Or I think maybe like if you just want like you want like maybe like slightly faster paced gameplay. I think Edison can definitely feel like it drags out with all like the set Raikos and Pod of Avarice and you know
Yeah,
like
I
Treeborn
agree.
Frogs
And but
coming
the
back
funny
every turn.
Yeah, I agree. But the funny thing is, all the things you mentioned, like the setting Raikou, you can still do that in this format. There are decks like Chaos Dragons that are still playing Raikous. Frog is relatively still relevant in this format as well, so
Hmm.
you can still play Treeborn Frog, but there is no Trap Dust Shoot, like you said. There is no Break Control. There are still some Saki cards, like and that's just part of Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like you
Right.
could stack a Monster Reborn for a game, a Dark Hole for a game. You could stack a boss monster like BLS, Hyperion, or top deck the Miracle Fusion and went in an open board and still win. So that's just always gonna be part of Yu-Gi-Oh! But it is what it is.
Right.
That's just how some people win and lose.
Right. 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 Well, okay, yeah, I think that about covers it. Thanks for coming on, Alvin, and thanks everyone for watching. If you listened all the way to the end, we really appreciate it. And we will see you
Yeah, of
all
course.
in the next one.
All right, peace.